Good morning, Sandbach Primary Academy. I hope you're all having a lovely day. It's Tuesday morning today, and for our assembly, we're going to carry on thinking about kindness. You've all now seen, the children in school have all now seen a video called Colour the World with Kindness, and if you remember on there, we really talked about how kindness spread, and if you do a kind act, how that sometimes inspires the person that you were kind to do something else kind, and that kindness spreads and brightens up people's worlds. And I wanted us to continue with the same theme today. If you remember, we started by talking about kindness because a lot of us have had a really tough time during lockdown and with worries about coronavirus, and have maybe felt a little bit grey and a little bit down like the characters in the video. And the kind of acts that we can do are a way of brightening up our world and helping each other to feel just a little bit kinder. So I'm going to ask your teachers to pause in just a moment, because what I'd like you to think about is whether you've already done something kind for somebody else this morning, and I wonder if you could share with your classmates what that was, or whether somebody's already done something kind towards you that you'd like to share with others. So teachers, if you don't mind pausing the video a moment so your class can have a talk about the kind things that have already happened, and I'll be quiet for a minute. Okay, hopefully you've been able to share lots and lots and lots of kind things that have already happened. And I wanted to share one of mine. Already this morning, as I arrived in school, everybody has smiled at me. And it's a small thing, but that's something that's really kind, because every time somebody smiles at me, I find myself smiling, and it makes me so much happier, and it makes my day brighter. I wonder whether any of you shared that this morning as well, that somebody had already smiled at you as their kind act, and that had already made you feel a lot happier. So I'm going to tell you a little story, and the story is about somebody who's really famous, somebody called Gandhi, who was one of the world's most famous leaders, and a really very kind person. And I want to read you a little story about Gandhi. So, Gandhi lived in India. As Gandhi stepped aboard a train one day, one of his shoes slipped off and landed onto the track. Oh dear. He was unable to retrieve it because the train was moving. So as he got onto the train, his shoe had fallen off and he couldn't get it back. To the amazement of his friends and his companions, the people who were with him, he calmly reached down and took off his other shoe. And as the train continued to move forward, he threw it back along the track so that it landed close by to the shoe that he had lost and the shoe that had fallen off. And his companions were really surprised and said to him, "Why did you do that? Why didn't you keep that one shoe? Why did you throw that shoe off when you'd already lost one?" And Gandhi smiled and said, "The poor man who finds the shoe lying on the track now will have a pair that he or she can use." So that's really interesting, because Gandhi, like I said, lived in India. And in India, it's a country where there's lots of poverty. That means there's lots of people who don't have very much money. So Gandhi's thought to himself, his shoe had fallen off, he couldn't get it back, and he's thought to himself, well, what a kind thing would be to do is to take the other shoe off as well, so that at least somebody else can benefit from the shoe that he dropped. I wonder how many of us would think that. I wonder how many of us would think, instead of panicking about the shoe that we'd lost, would actually think, well, what I'll do is I'll take off my other shoe as well to make sure that somebody else can find a pair. So that's a really, really kind thing to do, because he's thought straight away about other people and how he could help somebody else. So we're going to pause, and I want you to just have a talk with the other people in your class about that kind act, and think, why maybe did he do it? What made him think that he would do that kind act? So pause for a moment and have a talk about that with your friends, and I'll be nice and quiet. Okay, hopefully you've had a think about Gandhi, and I'm just going to read that story to you one more time, which is, Gandhi stepped onto a train one day. One of his shoes had slipped off and landed on the train tracks. He was unable to retrieve it because the train was moving. To the amazement of his friends and his companions, he took off his other shoe, and as the train continued to move forward, he threw it back along the track to land close to the first shoe. When asked why he did that, Gandhi replied and said, "The poor man who finds the shoe lying on the track will now have a pair that he or she can use." So that kind act, he put somebody else before himself, because he might have been able to keep one shoe on and hop. But instead of keeping one shoe on and hopping, he thought, no, I'll give that shoe away and I'll make sure somebody else has got a pair of shoes. So I now have a challenge for you today. And I know that you've already done some challenges when we did the Colour the World with Kindness, but I want you to think of one slightly bigger kind thing that you could do. I know last week we talked about things like smiling, helping people, saying kind words to people, but I wonder whether you can think of one really focused thing that you could do today. And I want it to be something you're going to do in school. And I want you to pick one person in your class that you're going to do this kind thing to today, a slightly bigger thing. And I wonder whether you could have a go at doing that kind thing today. And I want you, we're going to talk about this tomorrow, I want you to look at that person's face as you do something really kind, really unexpected, and something really kind to somebody else in your class. I wonder whether you could then have a look at their face and see how their face changes, see if they look any happier, any more excited. So have a lovely time doing those challenges today and brightening up each other's worlds and being really kind to each other. Thank you, everybody. See you next time.